them now. Skip out all of that and do the up the so. Cause we're gonna move on to my else. You can't just sit down and look
Good day, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the City and Guilds 2025 to 2026 workshop series. I would like to thank all the teachers, heads of department, principals, and anyone else who has taken the time out to join us today. We want to extend further thanks for all the support and commitment you have given to us throughout the years. It is an honor and privilege to provide certification for the young people of Jamaica and the Caribbean. We want to thank the Ministry of Education for giving us this opportunity to serve the youth of Jamaica, as well as the stakeholders across the Caribbean. As we look ahead to the upcoming school year, we want to make this year all about growth and how we can better serve the youth of the Caribbean. Here at City and Guilds, we are all about preparing our young people for the working world and the next stages of life. I would now like to share a few slides about City and Guilds and the work that we have done across the region and over the years. City and Guilds is an international examination body based in the UK and part of the City and Guilds International Group. As a group, they provide a wide range of products and services, including work-relevant qualifications for training, assessment, and learning support materials. And this is our motto. The City and Guilds of London Institute is committed to developing the skills of people and organizations to secure their personal and economic growth and prosperity. Our exams are competence-based, and what we mean by this is that the competence is the ability to perform the task or job successfully using a combination of knowledge, skills, and behavior, and is measured against a standard. The ability can be acquired through experience and/or training and potentially demonstrated by the qualifications. Here we can look at City and Guilds at a glance. Established 147 years ago in 1878, we have over 500 qualifications covering almost every major industrial sector. We have certified over 30 million learners, and we've been operating in over 83 countries across the globe. And here we have the 5 key strengths of City and Guilds. Progression. Our qualifications offer a clear progression path for learners. We offer qualifications from entry level up to level 7. Learners can use City and Guilds to take them from entry level up to the higher standards of professional achievement. Secondly, our portability. Our qualifications act as a benchmark for skills globally and are widely recognized and well respected, which means wherever life finds our learners, they can use their City and Guilds certification to get work. Thirdly, aspirations. Each learner has hopes and dreams for his or her career. City and Guilds qualifications give those people the skills that will equip them to reach their goals, whether that's getting a job, moving further into training, or starting or growing their own business. Fourthly, recognition. Our certifications are recognized globally, from educational institutions to professional bodies across a wide section of industries. Our certifications can really open doors. And lastly, employability. Because they're deployed with the help of industry experts and are workplace relevant, City and Guilds qualifications equip people for doing a real job, benefiting them and their employers. As we go on, I would like to focus more on our region. In Jamaica, the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information engaged us in 2019 under a 10-year contract to deliver qualifications in math, English, customer service, engineering, and the Skills Proficiency Awards. All of these certifications are delivered across the high schools in the country. Also in Jamaica, I would like to mention our partnership with HEART, where we have delivered or skills proficiency awards across 16 occupational pathways. And in that 3-year period, we have certified over 9,000 HEART learners. Our certificate in employability skills have also been delivered through HEART in the LIFT program since 2023. And since 2019, our qualifications in math and English skills have been offered to all students enrolled in HEART academies. And moving to the wider region, we have engagement with the Ministries of Education and Departments of Education in the following territories: Barbados, Bermuda, the Bahamas, the British Virgin Islands, and the Cayman Islands. But it's not only governments or government institutions that we deal with. We have several private training providers across the region. In Trinidad, in Guyana, in Antigua, and the list goes on. Our partners across the Caribbean are in many different institutions. They're ranging from high schools, ministries, colleges, tertiary institutions, vocational and technical institutions in several countries. We can go through the list here. We have our clients in Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Bermuda, the Bahamas, the Cayman Islands, Guyana, the British Virgin Islands, Antigua, Grenada, and of course, Jamaica. And now we move on to the big picture. We have issued over 240,000 certificates in the last 15 years. And here are the average pass rates for math and English in that period. As you can see, in 2025, we maintained the average for math, and we had a 1% increase in English, and an overall 1% increase for both math and English. And speaking of math and English, I would like to go into more detail about the certifications. There are 3 stages within both the math skills and English skills qualification, with stage 3 being the highest and mapping closest to CSEC. At each stage is a freestanding single subject with its own certification. With the math skills, it's assessed by a multiple choice paper marked in London. With English skills, there are 2 components to this qualification: speaking and listening, and reading and writing. The written paper is marked in London, and the speaking and listening is an oral examination assessed internally. You can get a certificate of unit credit by completing each of these sections. But to complete both, you'll get the overarching certificate in English skills. And moving on from math and English, we have the Skills Proficiency Awards. We have designed the Skills Proficiency Awards to provide a broad introduction to essential practical skills for those doing training or those that are employed in those areas of work. The assessment is done by a practical task and oral questions, along with an evidence of work by a portfolio. The City and Guilds Quality Assurance Oversight ensures that persons who fulfill this qualification are of the highest standard. Last year, in the school year 24-25, we registered over 5,000 students, and they completed it with a certification rate of 70%. And I would like to stress, there's no written examination. And here are the 12 occupational pathways under the Skills Proficiency Awards: carpentry, electrical installation, welding, fabrication and pipeworks, IT for office application, masonry, food and beverage preparation, plumbing, motorcycle repair, basic motor vehicle engineering, and painting and decoration. And now I would like to move on to our customer service. Our customer service qualification is offered at two levels. Level 1, which is the certificate, and level 2, which is the diploma. It is important to note that the qualification sits on the British qualification framework accredited by Ofqual, and it is globally recognized. Last year, just over 7,000 students were registered for the June 2025 sitting, achieving a pass rate of 56%. This shows that we still have a lot of work to do. And with that work to be done, I would like to highlight the importance of our customer service exams. As a global leader in skills development, City and Guilds works with governments, employers, colleges, and training providers to deliver workplace relevant qualifications, certification, and assessment as well across a variety of sectors meeting the dynamic needs of today's workplace. This qualification allows for employment opportunities in several industries, both locally and internationally. And these are some industries, just to name a few: the tourism and hotel industry, banking, business process outsourcing or call centers, healthcare, insurance, and general client representation. Everyone would need customer service. And finally, our engineering. This qualification will be offered through the sixth form pathway. This curriculum is delivered over a 2-year period with assessment by written and practical exams, and is ranked as a high order STEM program of study. The certification is available from level 1 in participating schools. And upon completion of level 3, this leads to a designation of engineering technician, which facilitates the post-nominal letters Eng Tech. And as you can see here, that designation of engineering technician will put you at level 3 on the ladder for engineering. With this, you can get jobs as a technician, and it would give you professional status. I would like to highlight the recognition of our certifications. With the support of the ministry here in Jamaica, we have achieved the following formal endorsements from the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the Jamaica Defense Force, the Ministry of the Public Services, Jamaica Employers Federation, the University Council of Jamaica, along with 20 different tertiary institutions in the country. As we move on, all successful candidates for Math, English, Customer Service, and the Skills Proficiency Awards will receive a paper certificate, but along with that paper certificate, they will receive digital badges for the June 2026 sitting. What's a digital badge? A digital badge is an electronic version of your certification, which you can attach to your email signature, or you can show anybody that you like. Students must have a professional email address in order to receive a digital badge. And of course, if there's any other feedback that you'd like to give us, whether it's questions, concerns, or any suggestions, or if you just want to reach out to us, you can contact us by the following means. Our telephone numbers are here on the screen. The WhatsApp lines are on the screen as well as our address and email addresses. Thank you. Now that you know more about us, I hope today you have a productive and informative session with our panelists. And all the best for the upcoming school year.
Good morning, everyone. Special good morning to Mrs. Duncanson and the City and Guilds family. It's always a joy to work with you and to look forward to our annual training seminars for our teachers. Let me greet our teachers and exam coordinators in the room. Hi! From the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, you know we love you. You know we appreciate you. Look at what you have done. We are celebrating you because of the performance of our students in the last sitting of City and Guilds. Yes, our TVET teachers experienced 70% success rate at the Skills Proficiency Award. Our language teachers, 70% success. A matter of fact, sorry, 75% of the students were successful in their English skills exams. In math, we had 56%, still a little low, but you saw what happened with CXC too, right? The math is low, so we do have a math challenge in Jamaica, so I'm not going to blame you guys for that. And of course, for the customer service, we also had a 56% success rate. And this year, for the first time, we asked teachers to give up their summer to work with some students, 333 of them, in the employability skills that we are trying to introduce to enrich the suite of support that our children can leave our education system with. And all 333 students were successful, were certified in employability skills. That's the job, colleagues. Congratulations. The Ministry of Education is better for your work, and our children are better for your work. Today, they can move into sixth form. Today, they can move into university. Today, they can move into the tertiary institutions, to include our teachers' colleges. Yes, the Ministry of Education has given the policy directive for our teachers' colleges to accept City and Guild Stage 3 for English skills and mathematics. Colleagues, can you imagine that? We are increasing access to tertiary education for our young people. And it is the work that we do with City and Guilds that is enabling that. We as teachers, you know I'm a teacher, right? We know that our children are different. And so it is a responsibility of the education system to provide the system for that. So CSEC is one, City and Guilds is another, NCTVET is another, CBQ is another. That's the richness that we bring to our students, so we can tap into their differences with the thrust for equity and equal opportunity for learning. And our children are maximizing because you are making yourselves available for training and development. So colleagues, with that background, I welcome you to this series of workshops with City and Guilds, where we are empowering you further to lift your standard of excellence in the education system. So I encourage you to maximize on this series this year. This is a 2025 series. I know the fact that you have turned up is a demonstration of your interest to grow as an individual and to ensure the success of your students. Thank you, and I wish you all the best as you make use of this learning activity. This year, City and Guilds, I want the ministry would like to acknowledge the work that you continue to do. You have expanded your suite of support for the teachers. Yes, the tutor's guide for the TVET teachers. Oh my God. City and Guilds, we are happy. So our technical teachers are now being supported this year in ensuring that they have support in the tutor's guide to understand the Skill Proficiency Award in a more clinical way, and so they are competent to deliver it in the way that will ensure the students will be successful. I encourage you, colleagues, my TVET teachers, when you are in the room, you may not be here today when you are listening to this broadcast, but I know they will be a part of the series of training, and I want to make a special plug. Maximize on this training opportunity. It is our commitment to our learners that every child in Jamaica should exit the education system with training in a skill area and certification. And we do that through the NCTVET, through the CBQ, and through City and Guilds Skills Proficiency Award. Colleagues, we are just basking in the many opportunities available for our young people. But it's only because of you they can tap into this. Again, teachers, I thank you. I thank you for all that you continue to do. City and Guilds, I thank you for building out the tutors guides this year, and I know you will continue to develop other suites of materials for our teachers to grow. I want all our teachers to commit to the training and certification that City and Guilds offers through their Quality Academy. I know that that is available and it's there for you to grow. We will give recognition to your engagement in these training sessions through our Jamaica Teaching Council to ensure that your certification, your training is recognized as part of your empowerment trust and will become a part of your PMAS or your performance appraisal, giving recognition to your growth opportunities and how well you have done at that. So ladies and gentlemen, again, I welcome you to the 2025 series of training being convened by City and Guilds Jamaica. We are blessed to have them on board because this is a thrust for equity and access and equal opportunity of learning for our boys and girls. Colleagues, this is a job. I know when you see your students out there, what it does for you, the feeling you get. And I too share in that because we are all on one accord. Congratulations, City and Guilds. Well done to our teachers and to our principal who gave you the permission to be out today to be a part of this empowerment session. I look forward to the outcomes. I want to see those scores I gave in the beginning of the math scores going up. I want to see the language, the English skills going up or the language arts going up. I want to see the TVET going up. I want to see customer service going up. And of course, we are going to tell you more later on about how we are going to include the employability skills component as an option that the students will pursue later on in this year and beyond. We're looking forward, colleagues. Again, welcome and congratulations. May God continue to bless you as we continue to grow Jamaica, land we love. God bless you. Welcome.
Good morning, colleagues in Jamaica and the Caribbean. Welcome to our annual workshop for City and Guilds English Skills. Let me use this opportunity to thank you for your dedication and the service you're offering to our students. We trust that you'll have a wonderful time with us and that we will be part of an opportunity to exchange and share ideas as we speak to the needs of our young people. We're going to be looking at some very engaging topics as we look at how our students performed in the June exam and what strategies we are going to be using to help to address some of these weak areas. But for those of us who might be new to City and Guilds English, I think it is only fair that we give you an opportunity to know what the product is about. City and Guilds English Skills is a qualification that caters to all learners, all quality learners, and all teaching and learning styles. There are 3 stages and the examination covers 2 broad areas. The reading and writing, which is externally assessed and marked, and the speaking and listening, which is almost like the SBA, that is internally assessed. There's one integrated and thematic assessment that covers the reading and the writing and also the speaking and listening. By that we mean every year we have a particular theme and every aspect of the assessment is geared towards that theme. So for the integrated assessment in this reading and writing, everything that they do, whether it is a comprehension pieces, we call them the documents, whether it's the grammar, whether it's punctuation, whether it's the extended writing, all of those will follow one particular theme. And instead of 3 papers, as in some examinations, we have one comprehensive paper that covers everything. For the speaking and listening, which is the internally assessed, it also follows the thematic, and the students will be assessed in various areas depending on the stages, which would include the listening task, the group discussion, the presentation, reflection, and evaluation. And later on, we'll have a team that will be speaking specifically to the speaking and listening. For this segment, however, we'll be looking at the reading and the writing. As we mentioned earlier, there are 3 assessments. The assessment really follows 3 categories: stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. However, all stages for the examination, it's the same 2 hours. For stage 1, there are 5 sections. We have the reading and the writing, and the 6 units are covered. And I should also mention that the handbook that the teachers have will really tell you what sections are assessed. So there are no surprises in the exam. Everything that's there is what we test. So they will not see something that is not tested. All the outcomes, all the evaluations, everything will be geared towards preparing the students for the assessment, and we see how well they do. So for the 2 hours for the stage 1, they'll be engaged in the extended writing task, which, if you notice the word limit, 75 to 100 words. Whether they're writing a letter at this stage or an essay, 75 to 100 words. They'll also be tested with comprehension strategies. So we have to be teaching them some of the skills that they need at this level. For stage 2, you'll notice that the writing task is a little bit more challenging in terms of the word limit. We have 200 to 300 words. And as we go up the stages, you'll realize that the more challenging, the more demanding, the longer the word length in terms of what is expected of our students. For stage 3, 300 to 400 words. And I might also pause to say that stage 3 is closest aligned to our regional exams. At stage 3, our candidates should be able to either go into the world of work or enter tertiary institutions. And all the major tertiary institutions in Jamaica accept students at stage 3. The University of the West Indies, UTech, Michael University College, and quite a few others. In fact, we have a list, and we should share that later. 21 tertiary institutions in Jamaica are accepting stage 3 as part of their matriculation. So in terms of the efficacy of the City and Guilds English skills, you see that it's a worthwhile and workable alternative, whether our students are going straight into the work environment or whether they choose to continue into tertiary. A little bit about the areas. What does the syllabus really cover? And I know that for those of us who are seasoned with City and Guilds English, you will be aware of that. But we're also mindful that you may have teachers who are not so au fait with what the syllabus is about, and I think it's incumbent on us to give them an idea as to what are some of the main areas that are covered. City and Guilds is a very practical, the English skills is very practical, very relatable, very useful. So for instance, they will have to know the purpose of the document. And when we say document in City and Guilds, we really are talking about the comprehension pieces that they do. So for every time we write for a purpose. Do we write to entertain? Do we write to inform? Do we write to persuade? So our students, when they read, they'll have to understand the purpose. Writing is not just airy-fairy. It is not random. Writers are very deliberate in terms of what they write, who their audience is. And this is what our students have to learn, because they're going to be tested on that. They might get a question, what is the purpose of this document? And they will get also some multiple choice items for them to choose. I should also mention that the exam is comprehensive in that the students get a chance to do objective type multiple choice pieces, open-ended pieces, and continuous writing. When we write, do we write to entertain? Do we write to inform? Do we write to persuade? And our students have to be aware of the purpose of the document. What is the writer's intention? What is hoped to be? What is it that the writer wants from the reader? And as they read through, there are certain cues in the document that will guide them into what the purpose is likely to be. Another area that teachers have to focus on is getting the main idea. What are the main points in this piece? And many times our children have a problem because they do not know what the piece is about, what the passage is about, what the document is about. If they do not understand what the document is about, it's going to be very difficult for them to get the main idea. Because the main idea is a kind of high order skill in that they have to understand summary. Are they able to summarize? Are they able to get at the main idea? But we can't jump there if they don't know what the original passage is about. So we'll have to teach comprehension in a very deliberate way for them to understand some of the low order skills and some of the high order skills. Another thing that they will have to practice is dictionary use. And for City and Guilds English, unlike other examinations, they have to take the dictionary in the exam. Because at every stage, they're going to be using the dictionary. Whether it is for them to find the meaning of a word or to find a substitute, or whether they are to find the opposite. But not only that, we have to teach them dictionary skills so that they'll understand that if I get a word that I have to find the meaning of, I have to understand part of speech. Because if I want you to give me a substitute and it's a noun, you cannot give me a verb. So in teaching them, you're also reinforcing parts of speech. And you're also expanding their vocabulary because they are learning synonyms and they're also learning antonyms as well. So even in the dictionary use, it's not just finding words, but it's a slew of other skills that you bring to it also. Sometimes when you see students looking at finding words in the dictionary, it can give you an idea as to, do they know how to put words in alphabetical order? Because if I ask you to find the meaning of, say, student, and you are looking at the first part of the dictionary, ABC, it means you don't know how to use a dictionary, because you should be looking towards the end, because the words in the dictionary are in alphabetical order. So that is also another skill. And they waste them in the exam when they're flipping through if they don't know which words come first and which words come towards the end. And also in stage 1, the students have to put, there's a task where the students have to put the words in alphabetical order. So that is a skill that they have to get regardless of the stage they're in. They also have to be taught image, and because all the passages, all the documents they get in the exam for comprehension will have at least one visual, and it's not there for decoration. They will have to realize that there is a connection between the image and the text, the printed word. So whether they are relating it to the caption or the title, they have to understand the purpose. Is it there to explain further, to give you a better understanding of? Because there are many types of images. It could be a graph. It could be just an illustration. It could be a picture. But whatever it is, they must understand the function. It is not just there to take up space on the page. Another skill, and I alluded to that earlier, summary skills. They have to be able to summarize. In other words, when you have, and we summarize every day. If you watch a movie for 2.5 hours and somebody asks you what the movie was about, in a sentence you might be able to sum it up. Boy, it was a situation where the man killed his wife because of so and so. And you'd have summed up 2.5 hours in one sentence. That is the kind of skill the students would need in order to take a large passage and sum it up. And in a sense too, when they do stage 2, if they do stage 2, there is an item there that will test their summary skills, because you might have 6 or so ideas out there, and they might ask you which 3 of these would constitute the main idea. What is this passage about? So you have to teach them summary skills. Another skill that must be taught, or another concept that must be taught, is what we call layout features or text features. These are the things that a writer will put in his or her work to make it more reader friendly. So writers use a lot of features to make their work engaging, to make their work reader friendly. When you look at bullets, when you look at headlines, when you look at lists, when you look at how they use color, when you look at font and font sizes, all of these are what are in the text itself, but the students or the learners will have to understand that these features are there for a particular purpose. When you have, for example, the headline, it draws your attention to the main idea. When you have the bullet points, you might be summarizing. When you have the subheadings, those are the features that would stand out in terms of the summary, the main ideas that are broken down in smaller parts. So they'll have to understand that these features are not just there for decoration as in the image, or what they might think that the image is doing, but it is there for a particular purpose, and all of these features aid comprehension in one way or the other. Another area that we have to pay close attention to is grammar. And every year we have this problem. It's a perennial problem. However, we hope to address that issue later on in our discussion. But there are quite a few errors in terms of tenses and homonyms and words easily confused. We have to see how we can address the area of grammar, and then punctuation. And that also is a major concern. And we're going to be looking at some of the strategies. So what we have highlighted just now are some of the areas. This does not comprise the entire syllabus, but these really are some of the areas that if we spend a little bit more time focusing on, our students will be better equipped to score better in the examinations. We're going to take a pause. Right after this, we're going to have our discussion, which we hope to be very informative and interactive and engaging. We are going to be looking at the Chief Examiner's report on how the students performed in the June 2025 examinations, and what strategies, if any, we can find to arrest some of the areas of weakness. So we'll see you in a minute or two.
My name is Alisa Brown. My title is a teacher assistant at Crystal House, Jamaica. The certifications I hold is City and Guilds Maths and City and Guilds English. My teacher, Miss Walker, she pushed me into that part of doing that subject at that time, and I applied for HEART for the program. I got a call, and when I went to my Crystal House, they accepted me, employed me, trained me, also trained in the work as a teacher. And then after that, 6 months or between 7, they employed me as one of their employees over Crystal House. I feel excited. I am very encouraged by it. I would not be in this position if I didn't do my City and Guilds Maths and English. So go for it.
Good morning, colleagues. Today we are joined for the discussion segment by 2 stalwarts in education. We have Miss Michelle Roberts, Head of Department for Camperdown, with over 20 years of service, and Miss Charmaine Tingling, Head of Department Holy Trinity, with about 40 years of experience. Now, we know that with all that knowledge, these people come to us with the dedication, the love. We know that these are authentic experiences because they have been in the trenches. They have been there with us. So we are expecting, as we engage them here, we expect some innovative and creative and practical, inspirational ideas and suggestions as we see how best we can handle the chief examiner's report and some of the areas that we really do need to pay some attention to. Before we go into what we're going to ask of them, let me just spend a moment or two to give you the broad picture in terms of how our students did in June. The big picture. Well, let us start with some good news because sometimes we hear the bad news all the time. Some of our students really did well. And those who did well, they demonstrated an understanding of the main purpose of the text, and they were able to identify the main ideas. And they were consistent in reading the comprehension skills. They understood the source documents, and they knew what was required of them, and they were able to relate the image to the print. So these are some very good comprehension strategies that we saw that our students applied, and we know that our teachers are really trying their best. So we want to thank you. They're also able to use the skills to find the appropriate dictionary definition. So some of them were able to use the dictionary very well. And they did pretty well too with the grammar and the punctuation. And they had an accurate and consistent control over spelling, punctuation, and grammar, and in their use of English. So it's not all gloom and doom. However, there are some areas that we really must pay some attention to. Let us look at the pass rate. For stage 1, the pass rate declined slightly by about 1%, from 67 to 66, roughly. For stage 2, however, the pass rate increased from 74.33% to 76. So there's some marginal improvement there. And at stage 3, there was some increase from 80 to about 82%. So the students did better at stages 2 and 3 in terms of the pass rate when you compare 2024 to this year. For those who got distinction, at stage 1, again, there was a decrease. So we'll have to see what's happening at stage 1. There was a decrease from 5.37 to 3.9. For stage 2, however, there was an increase from 9.6 to 14, almost 15%. So a roughly 6% increase right there. And for stage 3, there was a marginal increase from 7.37 to 8.17. So the lower, well, the pass and the distinction stages, levels, those who were at stages 2 and 3 did a little better than last year. Not where we want to be, but it's a good start, and we want to thank all those who are involved and engaged in teaching. Continue to do what you are doing. For this segment, though, we need to get some ideas from our learned educators as to what it is that they are doing that they can share. And we are going to be the 4 areas that we have pulled from the Chief Examiner's report, mainly because they really are areas for concern. Punctuation, grammar, getting main ideas, and addressing the writing part, the continuous writing. And that part is pretty important because the writing segment really controls most of it, attracts most of the marks. So let us start with punctuation. Why is punctuation such a challenge? And why is it at stage 1 only 20% got full marks for that item that tested punctuation? So it means that for every 5 students you see walking, only 1 got it right. Only 1 got the full marks. And remember, every mark counts. So what is it that is happening? And it goes further. At stage 2, only 40% got full marks. And listen to this one, at stage 3, 12%. We mean those with stage 3 now, these are the students we are sending off to tertiary, and these are the students we are sending off to the world of work, employment. 12% got full marks. So what are we doing and what can we do? So, Madam Tingling, who should we throw this out to? What is it? Is there anything that we can do?
Good morning, colleagues home and in the Caribbean. I am really honored to be here today. Thank you, Dr. Clark. First of all, I want to open with the fact that education is an investment and everyone wants to profit, and the profit is, of course, in the scores that we're seeing. For some reason, I am not disheartened because I know we are armed with adequate resources, strategies to overcome. I do appreciate the intensive nature of the examiner's report because it gives us the guidelines and the areas wherein we need some attention, more attention. Now, from what I have garnered, I realize that there are some perennial problems, and with punctuation where our students tend to ignore capital letters. Some other areas that were mentioned, the common I for the capital I, and some surprises because I did not know that this would be reflected in the examiner's report, the use of the capital F in the middle of a word, capital K, P, and S. These were some areas of concern. And so we know that from the very foundation, we know that from grades 3 up and even earlier, our students are introduced. These are not new concepts, right?
But let me just jump in a little bit.
Not a problem.
Punctuation and capitalization. Do you think that the technology that is available, the way we text, the way we use this informal discourse, might this be a part of the problem? Might this be the fact that, well, they are carrying over, it is a spillover?
Yes,
because I'm seeing grown adults.
It is, Dr. Clark, because one of the things that came to my mind as I read, in theory, our students have this in theory, but not in practice.
Okay.
And that is what we need to do. And so one of the things I'm thinking of is when they get to the secondary level, we know that we interface with them, let us say at least 3 times per week. What we will do is have an organized way of addressing some other problems. So for example, we know that, we can say we will have writing Wednesdays, when they know that on those days our minds are prepared to do extended writing. Grammar and punctuation could be on, I'm not sure how our timetables are structured, but we want to have targeted approach because the problem needs to be addressed.
But let me also jump in again.
Not a problem.
What if somebody on the outside who is not an educator, what if that person says, from your in grade 2,
Right.
you know some basic punctuation signs, full stops, capital letters, question marks. Why is it that we are not carrying this in the writing? Why is it that we're not able to identify? And not only that, sometimes they put them where they shouldn't be. So they are over-marking or overcompensating.
Quite so. Yes.
And they just decorate the page with these ones. It's like, well, you want the marks, let me give you them. Boom, boom, boom. So they put these marks where they shouldn't be at all. how can we in practical ways reinforce these even in our discourse, in how we speak? Could we use speech to teach certain punctuation marks, for instance?
We can do more than use speech.
All
We can
right, tell
also
us.
make gems and rap songs.
Okay.
Our songs appeal to our children. And I know that it has been proven to be effective. Even the research has shown it. So we could appeal to them. Now they're more into TikTok. We could even allow them to do group work where they have to present using TikTok. We have to go where they're going, what is appealing to them. Because we have to maintain, because at the end of the day, as I said, it's an investment and we want to see the passes. So we will play their game, if you want to call it that. So they will do their presentations, and then we have targeted approach. If we're looking at the internal marks, the comma, etc., or the end marks, the exclamation, my apologies, the question mark, the full stop, because sometimes we get them having the capital letter and ignoring the full stop. So I know that some persons or some research may say rote learning is a problem, but it has proven to be fruitful. So we have to maintain the drill and practice. So what I'm saying is structure.
So you're saying that there is a place for it.
There
it doesn't mean that you have to go that alone, but
Right.
that should be part
And
of the
remember
strategy.
that punctuation can never be taught in isolation.
Nothing should.
Right.
We
not
take
just
an
that.
integrated
Right.
approach.
So
Yes.
I'm saying we could incorporate them with the gems. I know that there was one rap piece that said punctuation has begun. And we could allow our students to do group work and come up with their own ways of making little TikTok things about punctuation, the
So you're
importance,
using
because
the
what
technology.
it does, right, the reinforcement and the repetition of them doing it. And what we do, because some of our sessions, it's an hour. So when a session is well planned for the first 5 minutes, because we want to have it ingrained in the memory,
Okay.
so that it will serve its purpose when it comes to our assessments. Some persons give 6 weekly assessments. Also, more of our end of unit assessments, we may have to look at that, because at the end of the day, we want them to have these important points. That because it is costing them. At grade 11 also, I believe we can introduce our students to the rubric. They should be made to understand the examiner. And that's one of the things I do as well, Dr. Clark and Ms. Tinglin. Let them hear that word. We are not the ones at the end marking. Let them hear your examiner is looking for. Let that become a catchphrase.
Okay.
And
Right.
so it is going to be every time they take up a paper that will ring, my examiner is looking for. It has become a part of their psyche. And so what I've done is to start using that term on a very regular basis.
And it works well.
And it works,
Well, let us
because we
hope.
have seen the marginal increase with stages 2 and 3, and we will be working on stage 1. And so, yes, we give the worksheets, right? And sometimes we know that our students will probably leave those even in the classroom immediately after they're through. Another thing that I would love for our teenagers to get is the peer share. You're going to be coming up with the guidelines.
So we'll come back to peer share, because we're going to see how that will work later on in other areas as well. So you're saying planning and reinforcing.
And as I was saying, for the week, let us say we know that we have 3 days for English, targeted approach. So therefore, our students become, and they anticipate, okay, today I'm coming to write. And because they have a timetable, on the timetable, I insist, grammar and punctuation, comprehension on Tuesday, writing on a Wednesday, for argument's sake.
So you're
I'm
strategic
encouraging, right.
And you're intentional.
Right.
All right.
And so they become trained, because we have to train. And it has to be, as I said,
Yes,
drill and
yes.
practice. And sometimes if you ever go into the class and let us say you know that today is comprehension, you say, you know that I want to do little writing. No, miss, today is comprehension, because they have now become so accustomed to that drill and practice, and it does work.
We have a place for that, and when we get back, we'll hear from Miss Tingley.
The City and Guilds qualifications are recognized worldwide. It opens doors locally and regionally for anyone who has a certificate. Employers know the value of the City and Guilds certification, whether it's in any of the subject areas, customer service, math, English, because it provides that real world skill that are transferable across industries. We focus on practical skills that employers look for, especially in technical and vocational areas, but it's not limited to that. We offer certification for everyone, whether you're in high school, a recent graduate of high school, or even in the workforce. Our strong local partnerships ensure that the certifications match the needs of the employers today. In addition to the physical certificate, you'll receive a digital badge which you can showcase or display on your social media, your website, or your email signature. It's a verified way to impress your employers and showcase your achievements. To start your City and Guilds journey, you can first visit our website, cityandguilds.com. You can call us or visit the office in Kingston. Here at City and Guilds, you're not just getting a certification, you're opening the door to a world of opportunities.
Welcome back. Ms. Tingling, what do you have to offer in terms of what has been said so far about punctuation and the strategies that we could use? Any ideas?
Good morning, colleagues. Several.
Oh,
One of
great,
the things I heard
great.
from Ms. Roberts about the structure, very good. I'm sorry, we all have something happening in our throats, so I'm no exception. We have a game at Holy Trinity, we call it, we do it again. Because when you write, we correct. But if we are true to ourselves, the children do not even look at what we corrected. So the next writing exercise, the problem comes back. So what we insist on is that you pay attention to our corrections and do it again. And of course for that you might get a merit or something because they like a little reward. Even our very big boys. So that is important, I think, colleagues. Do not just correct the work, but you have to insist that they pay attention to the correction because it is practice, you know. It is practice. So when they do it again, it's a little bit more work, but you will have to mark it again, put a little star. My grade 11 boys ask what happened to the thing, miss? It's the little star, you have to buy them.
So
and put there.
incentivize them.
That is very, very important
Incentivize
at
them,
whatever
yes,
level.
Yes,
My big boys like that.
that's great.
So that is very important. You have to reinforce, you have to practice. That's what punctuation is.
And I'm glad that you're having this relationship with the boys because, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues all, sometimes we do not reach the boys as we would want to. They tend to be marginalized. There's a way in which we can engage our young men. And that is very important. I'm glad that they have caught on to your vision.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I know it takes a little bit more work to give them the work, mark it, take it again, and insisting that they do the rewrite and for you to mark again. But it is dedication.
It pays off.
It's passion and it pays off.
And if you don't do that, the problem persists.
Yeah. So here's a strategy that we might want to try.
We do it again. That's
We
what
do
we
it
call
again.
We do it
All
again.
right.
And they come up with their little DJ thing. They do it right.
Yeah, next time we really should have a little thing with them, you know.
Doing
it, yes.
Yes.
I'd love to see some of your boys in action. Wonderful, wonderful. So there are a few other areas we want to touch on, ladies and gentlemen. Another area of concern, it's not so big this year, but I think we also need to touch on it, getting main ideas. Again, it comes back to how they read, what they read, and if they're able to see what is the main idea. Again, it comes again to summary. Are you understanding the original passage and what is the main idea? The chief examiner said at stage 1, only 39% successfully identified the main idea. How can we encourage reading and comprehension? And I'm throwing it out.
Doing it out.
Yeah.
One of the things is that the reality is that especially at the stage 1, they're challenged.
Yes.
They do not like to read generally.
Yes.
And
They are
so
we
there's
call
a
them
fear of-
reluctant readers.
They're reluctant. They don't like it. They think they have been correcting all the from grade 1. They are reading. They are slower, and we have been correcting and correcting. So they get to the point where they really don't want to do this
And they are
thing.
completely turned off, some of them.
Very turned off.
Yes.
So when they get to us at grade 10, this 2-year City and Guild program, we really have to dig deep into our creative genius and come up with ways. It has to make sense to them. So even a passage, it has to. I have a class of currently grade 10. When you look in there, you see a sea of boys and a few girls dotting.
Yes.
What I take to
that's
the
the
classroom
reality.
must make sense. It has to be about sports, cars,
Their center of
you-
interest. Yes.
Center of interest. Teachers, it's important that we meet our students where they are. Our students are not really passive learners. They don't sit and just absorb content, information that you disseminate, learn it, and put it back. We have to be very interactive, very engaging.
Yes.
And may I just give you certain example?
Yes,
The other
please.
day
We'd
they
love to
said
hear that.
me,
Yes.
my mechanic gave me his Pro Box to drive. And my boys will tell me, Miss, it don't fit you. Me don't want to see you into that. So when, yes, Miss Anna, you that, get back your van. And so what I did in introducing paragraph writing, I went to the class and I said, you know something, boys, I agree with you and I'm tired of this old Pro Box, you know. And I need a new car. But I am stepping it up, so I really want a fancy car, a luxurious car. And of course, we went at
noticed
the word
vocabulary
luxurious,
there,
right?
yes.
So in that class, I did vocabulary development
Yes.
as well. So you notice vocabulary development came out as well. And so I said to them, I want a really very luxurious car. As to whether I mean it or not, if I can afford it or not, is beside the point. I'm teaching a lesson.
Yes, and the word is
So I
luxurious.
wrote on the board,
vocabulary.
the most luxurious car in the world. And of course, I got the Lamborghinis and the Benz and the Prado and all of the high-end vehicles. And I said, no, what makes that car, in your mind, luxurious? And of course, I have the boys going because that's an interest for them.
That's their thing.
I made sure to note all the things, the features that I had no idea existed in a motor car or a motor vehicle. And then I said to them,
And you were learning as well.
I was learning so much. It was very interactive. Of course, the girls trying their best to outshine the boys
Of
because in an
course.
English class, how dare the boys
Oh, yes.
be more, interactive?
Highly
and
competitive,
So,
yes.
yes, the girls think that English is theirs. And so when they did all of that, I said, so okay, so that makes it the most luxurious car. And I said, right then and there is the main idea. Because all of the information you have given me helps to support your position.
So you see what you have
And I
done. You
got
have
it.
taken something that is relatable,
Relatable, very relatable to them.
and they have
Yes.
owned it.
Yes, they
Yeah.
did.
And that's great.
And
that
I
is
really
what we have
had
to do. Yeah.
not much issue with them sitting down now and putting the points
So the
together.
class just
It flowed.
Yeah.
And they were quiet. And they did some work. And every time that I'm going to introduce a concept to them, it has to be something of their interest. It takes a little effort and they can relate to. Failing that, you're going to lose them.
If I may add,
Yes,
very,
please.
very lovely
Yes,
idea.
yes.
If I may add, because you mentioned center of interest, again, our children love songs.
Yes.
And so we
Yes.
could get them, one strategy could be to get them to give us the main idea of a song that they
Yes.
have
Play the
been
song for
singing,
them.
right? And we
Yes,
work on
yes.
it together. Another strategy that I find especially, this may be especially helpful for our students at stage 1 and 2, start simple. So the main idea, give them a set of words, just about 5 words. What category does this word fall into? So before we jump into paragraph, we're doing this deliberately and in stages.
So she's
So-
scaffolding.
So
Right.
building blocks,
Right.
yes, scaffolding,
Right.
yes,
Scaffolding.
Then
yes.
we
Very
go to
important.
getting them now a short, just a very short passage. You want 10, summarizes in 10 words and summarize in 15. So because they have become, used to this, and then we would take them to paragraphing.
So you see how you're
Right.
doing this in stages.
In stages.
Yes.
Step, you're not scaring them
Right.
off.
No.
Step by step, and you're building.
1 word,
Yes.
then 10 words,
Yes, great.
then we get them to try to manage a paragraph.
And
And
as-
so you're strengthening them as you go
Yes.
along.
And when you go paragraph by paragraph, it's easy on you to mark.
It's
So instead of
Right.
marking an
Easier.
entire essay, you concentrate on one decent paragraph.
Yes.
And it works because,
works.
yes, when you have 38 before you, it's easy to mark 38 single paragraphs than 38
Yes.
essays.
Essays.
So think about yourselves as well and manage the task.
Yes.
Great.
And also that could take us into modeling.
Yes.
Remember, the process is the I do, you do, we do.
Yeah.
So we're going to be going through a few in class first. And in term one, sometimes we don't have to do the rushing, you know. Let us try and manage a passage on the board together. And then we show them that sometimes what are the different approaches that we can take. Also, there's where we could tell them to flip the sentence because some of them love to lift. And
Yes.
we know that they're going to
And
get marked
lifting
for
was
that. So we're
part-
going to go
Yes.
together. What ways? Yes, I'm struggling for a word. I may not be able to come up with a word. But what if I flip this sentence? Put the end at the beginning and vice versa. Or use a word from the middle. Because sometimes we know that the vocab might be a challenging and exam pressure might have them cornered. So we could say, if you feel pressure, just flip the sentence around. You're not starting the very same way, but you're manipulating the sentence
And
to
you
your
see how
advantage.
you're guiding them, you're making the classroom space comfortable
Right.
and for them to build on what they have, what they know, what they like.
Yes.
We're going to continue with what is also connected to this. We're going to be looking at the writing task because this is an area that we must address head on. We'll be right back.
City and Guilds is a viable option for several students in Jamaica, and the accreditation is very valuable as students go towards their career path or prepare themselves to enter the tertiary institution of choice. Several organizations see the value of their employees being certified in City and Guilds. That being said, we can talk about Jamaica Constabulary Force and the toll booth operators. They would have seen the value of it and invested in developing their employees professionally by sponsoring them to obtain certification in City and Guilds. CSAC is our regional exam. However, City and Guilds is a viable option for students who are not going to enter into career paths that are math extensive. And that being said, City and Guilds math is an excellent option for students who have this new career path. The lawyer, the doctor are not the only professions out there. City and Guilds math is a viable option that should be explored by you if your career path does not require extensive math studies. Will take you places.
Music license.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues all. We were looking a while ago at main ideas and we offered quite a few strategies. We are going to be looking now not just at the comprehension piece, but what the students actually produce, what they write. When we looked at what the chief examiner had to say, it was almost very damning. We are not doing as well as we ought to. It was said that for the most part, and remember that the writing task, at least for stage 3, is 35 marks. 35, that is 50% of the marks will go toward the writing task. So if you do not do well there, you have already failed yourself. So we have to concentrate a little bit more. Here are some of the observations in terms of the scripts that were sent. Empty boxes. You know that for the writing, the students are provided with a little space, a little box that they put their rough work. I'm going to show that shortly. There are empty boxes. There were incomplete boxes. sometimes the students just rewrote what was in the rubric in the boxes. So the instructions, they just copied it in the boxes. Or sometimes they padded to get the word limit, the word count. So they just added all kinds of words that maybe made sense or didn't make sense, or they use their own experiences. They disregarded the source documents, used their own experiences, and they just answered. So we need to see how we can address or we can cauterize this particular situation. At stage 1, only 14% produced a plan for 2025, a drop from 23% the year before. So we are getting at stage 1, it's, you know, a lot of things are happening at stage 1 that we have to address. And only 50% of them met the word count. And the word count at stage 1 is what? 75 words. Only a half of them could manage to write 75 words. So it means that for the most part, it was the empty page you were looking at, or just a few sentences. At stage 2, under 20% produced a plan. And about 50% met the word count. And at this stage 2, some students lifted sections from the source documents into the writing task. And at stage 3, about 20% produced a plan. So in terms of the planning and a demonstration of the planning, we're not seeing that. We're not seeing enough. Maybe I should qualify. We're not seeing enough of that. Now we need some strategies. What do we do? How do we fill the page?
It comes back again
All right.
to practice. What we do, teachers, is to teach brainstorming and planning in isolation. The City and Guild exam give you a box.
Yeah.
What we have done is to create our own, and we take our boxes to class, because the children, we just print them out, and every child has a handout.
So
of
you
a box
simulate
before them.
the
That's what you
exam.
have to do. You have to.
Okay.
And so you're discussing the topic again. Usually we start with something of interest, and the children have their ideas there. So planning is not taught in isolation, because when they get to the exam, they cannot relate to the box.
Yeah.
That's what it is. For
They
the most
should be
part.
seeing the box for the
But
first
They
time.
should not
Right.
be seeing the box. It should be a very familiar image to
Yes.
them. And that is what we have started doing, and put something sensible in there.
So
That-
the first thing you're saying, you get what they're interested in.
Most
Forget the exam.
definitely.
You're getting their center of interest. You're getting what they like,
Yes.
what appeals to them, what will get them started, what will
pay
what will
attention to you.
get them to pay attention.
Yes.
And then you use that as the starting point.
As the starting
Because
point.
sometimes when they think exam, they might think of something very boring and something that they can't relate to. But if you
Punitive.
begin, yes,
Punitive.
if you begin to use what they like and what appeals to them, that works. And what another strategy you have used, which also helps, is to simulate the examination.
Yes.
So the very same thing they see in the exam is what you have produced in the classroom
Over time.
over time. So when they get to the exam in June, they're not surprised.
They are not. We capture our box.
So you remove the element of
Yes.
surprise
You have to.
and fear from them.
Because that throws them
Yes,
off.
it
So
does.
we call it box them in.
Ah,
So
I
the
like
picture
that.
would be at your
Box
ideas.
them.
Box
That's
them
a
in.
great one, yes.
Right? So
Box
and,
them in,
And
yeah.
we're talking your ideas now.
Yeah.
Put them in the box.
Yeah.
Because some of them will say, Miss, then how you always so much think outside of the box? I said, today we are boxing
You're
them
boxing
in.
them
Your
in,
brilliant
right.
ideas are going to be put right here. So you're going to be writing. So ensure that you do that. Even once per month.
Yes, and the box really is not for them to write out the entire essay or letter. It's just the jottings.
Just a jotting.
And then again, this is why main ideas are important, because
Right.
their summary writing skills will come to
come
play
back.
right here.
Right.
Yeah. And if you, I don't know which of you would want to just go through what the typical writing task would look like in terms of the box that they have to be boxed in. You want to take it from me?
Okay. All right. Just show it here.
Well, you could just read what is here
All
so
right.
they see.
No, we would also want to, before I get into this, I'm thinking that we could let our students create their own exam checklist. So
Yeah.
before, during, and
And
after,
after.
because
All right.
we want to encourage them to do proof.
All right, so that is
Right.
strategic.
Right.
All right, let us see how you.
Right.
What would be some of the things that they do before, during, and after?
So before we
One
want
thing-
to
even
ensure,
one thing
before
each.
ensure I have a blacking pen. We don't want any gel.
Very good.
That's two.
And no
because we
pencil.
find- right.
No pencil.
Right? We want to also let them remember time. I have this time within which to work. It is
Yes.
not all
Very
day.
good.
I have a dictionary to use, so my resources are in place. Right?
Great.
So we would get those stuff in. Also, before I get to the box, so we are gonna let them get their writer's checklist. It's gonna be there as a part of their daily. And once it comes to grade 11, I believe we should always try, just before we get into the meat of the matter, get them to have this. Get this as routine.
I like the idea of the writer's checklist, and it
Right.
should be somewhere visible in the classroom, you know.
It could be in their, and also
Or
in their
their-
English books.
Yes, and on their
in the
their-
English books. They
on
will
their
create their own
devices.
document,
Yes.
get it all fancied, whatever,
Yes.
bullets, fonts, whatever
Yes.
you want,
Yes.
get it
And
well
the-
done.
those
And
text
and
features
because
again, text
yes,
features,
the,
yes,
the,
text
the
features.
competitive nature will come in. Man, look, but Miss going to give me
Yes.
3 stars instead. But
Yeah.
the aim is, and we're going to go through it with them. So it's a preliminary to our class. And
Great.
also our exit tickets as well. Before I leave the class, I must remind, today you put persons in charge. What are 2 tips that you would give to someone when they enter an exam? So you're giving them that sense of
Yes.
leadership. They're
Great.
taking on, they're becoming in
Very.
charge of their own learning. These are students are old
They
enough,
have
so
to
they
be
must
responsible
recognize,
learners, yes.
right, that they are
Responsible
right,
for their learning, yes.
Right. And I love the fact
You
that
could just read everything there so that they get a sense of what is required of them
right. Okay.
from the task straight down to the box.
Okay, so at the beginning, this is section 2, and I love the fact we could also let our children be aware of the marks.
Yes, they need
Look,
to know.
Am I going to
They
get
need to
28
know.
marks for 10 lines? No. We would also have to emphasize those parts. Use the marks as an incentive. How many marks am I really working for when I just put this down?
Yeah.
In order for me to get the superior marks, all right, what are the things that are going to be needed from me? So we have to start to sensitize them to
Great.
taking on note of the marks. And I would encourage us to invest in telling our children, underline important things. And
Yeah.
one of the things they could underline at the top of the page are key instructions. What is the
Yes.
instruction saying?
Yes.
Right? And underline to what marks I'm getting. So here we have a sample of the activity, and it says, write an article for a local magazine about how to improve the transport system where you live. The bulleted points now, and I love the fact that it's
Yes.
in bold. You must explain, 1, what types of transport people use, 2, what improvements you would make to the transport system, 3, why you would make these improvements. Again, here as teachers, we could say, here you have your ideas for your 3 paragraphs set out.
Yes.
So
It's
paragraph
organized.
1, and so what we could teach them to do is, this is my paragraph 1, this is my paragraph 2, this is, and that's of course a conclusion. Now the instructions are clear, and it continues. Use these bullet points to help you think about what you are going to write. Write 200 to 300 words. Here we would again use the underlining techniques because it helps to stand out in the visual. And we know that majority of our students are visual learners. Use 200 to 300 words. Don't let them gloss over that. So in practice,
Word
as Ms.
count is
Tinglin has said,
important, yes.
let them underline that. And in underlining, it somehow helps to emphasize what
Yes.
are what the important
Yes.
roles are that I'm required to do. You must write at least 200 words. In class, we're going to get them to underline this. This is not something we want to gloss over because some
Very
of our
important.
students gloss over it. And in
Yeah.
stopping to underline it, it takes that moment as a moment of
Reflect.
emphasis.
Yes.
Note, do not use any of the information from document
You
1
must
and 2.
emphasize that.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
they smartly will just
Yeah,
That's
and the
what
chief
I'm saying.
examiner
Must
said that they
emphasize.
lifted
They lift it,
sections
right.
So
and
we
just
have
put in
to
their piece.
tell
Yes.
them. It's there to guide you,
Yes.
not for you to copy.
Not for you to
Very
copy.
good. And then again, the drill and practice that we mentioned.
Yes.
So in continuing with the document, it says, you will be given marks for. Now, these are crucial.
Yeah.
We want our students to be able to identify and realize these are help points, really,
Yeah.
that they must pay special attention to. 1, you will be given marks for the plan. Content, we could stop there to explain content, because we
Yes.
take it for granted that our students, you're writing about tires and yet your content does not relate.
Yes.
And we want to even use this to give
Yeah,
them
you
a
have to- you have to
breakdown for the
break it
28
down.
marks.
Yes,
How
break
much
it
would
down
I
for
get?
them.
How much would be assigned to
Break it down,
this
yes.
for that?
Yes.
Writing in a logical order, you use the word sequence there. How easy it is to be read. The length, you must have at least 200 words, and we have to teach our students to stop counting words
Yes.
individually,
Yes,
because again that interferes with
wastes
time
time too,
management,
yes.
right? The layout of the document, including paragraphs, again the indentations,
Yes.
the full stops, the capital letters, and it continues spelling, punctuation, and grammar, and the use of language. All right.
And
must
then
write
you
down
have the box. Yes.
The box. So the bullet points, what types of transport people use, you're brainstorming. So you begin to write.
Right.
In order for your content to be meaningful
Yes.
and relevant,
For you to build on what
to
is
build
in
on it.
Yes.
So you jot that. It's
Yes.
very, very important. What improvements you would make to the transport system? What? Talk to me. What
Right.
would you do? They jot that down. Because without that, after they read the 3 points and they're going to forget what up here really talks about. Why would you make these improvements? Jot it down. It's very, very important.
So
May I just add?
again, you just have to keep
Reinforcing,
hammering,
reinforcing.
yes.
Practice,
And if we
practice.
could get our principals to buy into the idea that at grade 11, what counts is the externals. And therefore, we could introduce writing workshops,
Yes, because you're preparing them.
right? So they will have
For
their
life.
sample materials, there are enough past papers available
Oh yes.
So
we have
those could be
14 sets.
included
We'll get to those later.
into our writing workshops, and as well as the use of the planning box and the importance of the planning box. So I think that we could add that to our,
Yes.
one of the things that we request. One workshop per term.
So you're saying that if we had the writing workshop,
I
that
believe
would
it
help.
might help us
Yes.
to yield better results.
Whatever it takes, I think once it is within our power, we should try, because our students can do much better if they can manage this section of the paper, if they can produce the kinds of results that we're getting in the earlier parts here. I think we'll have a lot more of them getting distinctions.
Yes,
A
it is
lot
worth
more
it.
of them. So it's worth a try,
It
I
is.
think.
But I would think that before we even get there, we have to understand in our minds that, as I said before, our students primarily, they are not passive learners.
Not at all.
They are more kinesthetic. They like to hold, they like to touch.
And that's why the
And
workshop
so
will yield.
It would, but before we
Because
get
we
there,
get
because
there.
we're scaffolding,
Right.
it is very, very important. My boys came up with something a little, I won't call it, for this purpose I'll say it's a gem, but it's not really, on paragraphing, because I just keep at them that it's the foundation for good writing, for a good essay.
Yes.
So if a paragraph isn't structured, if the main idea isn't there and the supporting details, and so the creative ways, the paragraph puzzle, they like that. So you get your strips and you have them and you distribute.
Okay.
And so somebody reads them, you just have them reading. And while they read, if somebody can, they write them on the board. And does that make any sense? But you have all the sentences here. Now come, let's make some sense out of this.
And you're talking about logical order.
Logical
here that comes
order
back
right there.
from-
Sequencing
But
is
it
important.
is
Yes.
a structured paragraph that you're going to get at the end.
Yes.
That's the objective. And if one leads into the other, sometimes by
Yes.
the use of, you now have to come up again with a creative way to have the paragraphs flow cohesively.
Yes.
The link
Right.
word games,
Yes,
like
the link
slap
word,
it,
yes.
go and look
Linkages
it up.
are
I'm not
important.
going to tell you what it is. Slap it, there's a whole lot of that as to how you creatively introduce link words
Yes.
into paragraph writing.
Yes.
As I said, colleagues, it takes a little bit more effort because of generally the students we are faced with sitting there with, especially at stage 1. But we need them to get the stage 1 to move on to stage 2
Right.
and stage 3. So we have to help
Yes.
them understand who they are, how they learn, and meet them there.
Yes. And we're going to box it now with the
Box them in.
Box them in. Any other ideas? Because we have one more before we wrap up. We have the grammar part to get to.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Okay.
have grammar to touch on.
I'm
well,
not sure if I had said that we have to try to connect the concepts to real life experiences.
Well, we have been
Yes.
saying that in many different
Real life
ways.
yes.
Yes.
Well, I just put it in a
Yes.
sentence for you.
Yes.
Connect the concepts to real life experiences and start with an interesting activity.
When you mentioned
that
the cars,
engages them.
Right,
you mentioned
right.
yourself
That
about
was
the
mine.
cars. That was a very
Yes.
good one.
All right.
Yes.
One of the things we could probably
And
do,
it shows that you know your class. You know what they
You
like.
Yes.
have to know them.
Yes.
it does. I think we could give them some mnemonic devices,
Mm-hmm.
a competition. When they were studying the planets, etc., even in some of their science class, in order to remember something. So to remember the punctuation mark, they could come up with mnemonic
Yes,
devices.
yes.
Again, we could
Anything
introduce
that
who can come up
works.
with one
Yes.
the best, and of course the incentive for those who might. And then even if there are groups that may not come up with something that's appropriate, their peers can critique. What could I have added to
Yes.
make this more
More
appropriate?
effective, more
So we could also
appropriate,
use
more
some mnemonic
appealing.
device
Yes.
as well
Yes.
to say what are the
What?
marks that I'm going to be punctuation. We could use
Yes.
some of those as well.
And then we could have a vocab day, depending on your
Yes.
timetable.
And remember
Yeah.
too,
Vocab
the
day.
word lists, we should have mentioned
Yes,
that
yes.
earlier.
Yes.
Each stage has
Has a
its
word
own
list.
word list that is in keeping with the theme for that year. And we are expecting that teachers would use the word lists in
Hence your
creative
vocab day.
ways,
Yes.
vocabulary building.
Yes.
But that would also call for the dictionary use
Dictionary
as well.
use,
Because we
yes.
would want to encourage them to
Yes.
have those in alphabetical order for ease of reference, of course, when
Yes.
it comes to. And then we could put students in charge of 5 words per day or 10 words.
And for
Grouping
research,
as well.
for their extended writing as well. So
Yes.
there's so many things that you can do with
And for
these
fun
lists.
too.
Of course.
Because
But you could-
when in
you
our
could create
we
your
do
puzzles,
vocabulary
yes.
games,
Yeah,
we use the
games,
dictionaries
Yes, fun and
in,
games.
in the classrooms to find the words from the word list.
Yes.
And the first
Right.
person to find it and to read the meaning,
Yes.
you get so and so because
That
Our
reminds me
children
of
love
the
something.
Bible
Yeah.
game Swords in
Sword
Hand.
in
So you
hand.
could just
Yeah.
say
Sword in hand.
dictionaries in hand.
Diction- that's what we say.
Charge.
Yes.
And
you,
we-
you
because you
customize
want to-
a very
so they
Yes.
are familiar
a
with,
very
with the
old
vocabulary.
Yes.
So we have a vocab day according to your timetable. We ideally would like the Friday, but you may not be timetable for English on a Friday. You use a Thursday. And that session is for, we call it vocab activities, vocab day,
Yeah.
across the department. It
May
works.
I add too that
Great.
we understand some of the settings. Sometimes your English class is after lunch.
And
And we
there
know
are
the
two.
challenges.
Yes,
so
we
if
know.
you're gonna have
They don't want to be in
vocab
class
day,
at that time.
you could.
Yeah.
But I want to tell
Or
you
the
that
last two
if you
sessions.
entice them, they will come.
Yes.
They would rather
So-
come and say, "Me say no, so I'm lunch late, but I'm here." And so,
That's
to your
great.
advantage
That's
now,
great.
why don't we capitalize on that and make that vocabulary? It's after lunch, they might be a little bit,
Yes.
but if they know that they're going to be getting an incentive and
They
they're going to
come.
be playing a word game,
Yes.
they will turn
Yes.
up. The boys will come, and we're not going to
Picture them
mention
the last two
girls.
sessions of
Yes.
school.
Yes.
At
All right,
2:15 to
great.
3
Yes.
o'clock.
Yes.
You have to do something like that. Another good strategy is the DEAR program. Drop everything and,
And read,
They
yes.
do that. In a,
And I
as
know they
long
do
as
that
we
in
have
primary
material.
schools as well. It's
And
very
some-
good.
Yes,
strategy
sometimes very
to
simple
encourage
little
reading.
passages. The audio visual comes in here.
Yeah.
So you take that
Because-
in and they sit quietly
And
and they listen.
because we have to encourage them to
To
be
read.
active readers,
Yes.
they need to read and understand.
Professor,
That's
it might
important.
take the teacher, and I speak to you as one baptized, to go to the library and find some magazines, find interesting articles that, again, my boys, I'm a boy specialist, there's an influence. And I only have one biological daughter, but never mind. So my boys find magazines, comb through the library, wherever, for them to sit and it's a short article. It has to be
How
short.
can we
but
use
it's
technology
interesting.
though? How can we
So that's what I'm
use
thinking of that.
technology? Because what if they don't want to go into the library and take
No,
up
they don't
a-
go
No,
to the
it's-
library.
she
No,
was
I
saying the
take it to
teacher.
the
You
classroom.
take it to the,
teacher
the
does
classroom.
so you bring it to the
If
Right.
you are nicely connected to the internet, you can take your
Yes, they can do the virtual thing as
the-
well
yes.
and get them to read as
What-
long as they're reading. Yes.
schools like me with
but-
the challenge. What I
yes.
do is to take the boombox in with a nice little passage, something very interesting.
Yes.
They like
Yes.
see the whale, the this, the that. I spend time trying to find things, and they
So
quiet,
they're
the boys
hearing and
slouch.
they're seeing.
So they yes, so they sit
Yes.
back. I leave them alone. Nobody says you have to sit up and listen. You slouch, you do what you're doing, your boys, and you listen. But you're hearing, I pick out the
very
vocab, we
useful.
continue with that.
Yes.
So it's
But
you
if
have
it
to
works,
find
yes.
ways.
If it
I'm
works,
thinking
try
too,
It works.
perhaps we could mimic some programs that are popular. Talk Up Youth. So we could call it Read Up Youth.
Yes.
Or something. We record them so they hear themselves.
Then-
Let it,
yes.
let it
And
be
this will also
something,
help
yes.
them with the speaking and
With the
listening that is
speaking
coming
and
short.
listening, yes.
Because they're going to want
they
to
like, they
have
need
their
to hear
peers
how
hearing
they sound.
them. Right.
Yes.
Right.
And
So
they
those
won't
are
be
just a
shy
few
and so on. The
things.
last thing we need to touch on before we wrap up, grammar. I know we have been kind of, going circling it, grammar. And the strategies for a bilingual classroom. Because you see, one of the problems we're having is that our learners are not able to make the switch between what is standard Jamaican English and what is what we call yard talk, Jamaican or
Natural
Jamaican
Jamaican,
language,
yes.
which is the home language. And because they are not able to make the switch and they're not able to see the context, then you see what the chief examiner would see as errors. But they're not errors if it's yard talk, It's not errors because that is how we talk at home.
Right.
But it's errors for
But when
purpose of
you're
exam.
doing formal discourse,
Formal discourse.
it becomes non-standard. Hence the problem. How can we get our learners to manage the two languages well? Well, we know they master the yard one already. How can we get them to master standard Jamaican English? And I'm throwing it out again, and this is the last
It may not be
Yes.
very popular, what I do, but I have to have a classroom of English. I explain to them that I embrace my culture. So I love the Creole. I don't think there's anybody who can do it like me. But at the same time,
well. Speak for yourself.
let us have a competition
Speak for
afterwards.
yourself.
I do my patois really good. But I said to them, in a flash, do you hear me speaking standard English?
Yeah, can
That's
you
what I want from
code
you.
switch? Can you move from
Right.
one language
To the-
seamlessly
They-
into the other?
Seamlessly is
And
a
that is
problem.
the problem.
So what
Are
I
you
do with
able
them-
to do that?
In the classroom itself, it has to be, for the most part, standard English. Address me like that. We write like that, and when I correct your work, we do it again. And the person who does it first, sometimes I have you read what you write, and of course, the big up, you maybe put on the notice board, you maybe give me a star or something, a patty. They love that. They love the belly. Don't you know that? So you keep, it's practice. I don't know how, any other way to say it. So to get them to appreciate the standard English for the purpose of exam, for the purpose of formal writing, and if you choose to migrate, even at the airport dealing with the customs officer, they may not know your language. You have to speak the universal language for those purposes while embracing your, I call it their mother tongue now, because the Creole is. So it is just, so I have an inclusive classroom of
And that is
standard
important.
English.
It is important because if you have learners who only know one language well, how do you get them to be comfortable enough to open their mouths and speak? Because you might have a situation where they just shut down because they cannot use standard Jamaican English. How do you do that? When I was a practicing teacher, I used to allow them to speak any way they want, but we would have what we call interpreters, translators.
translators.
So we find another way, we take it because I want them to talk, I want them to engage in the class. But I let them see that there is another way that you can say it. It might mean practically the same
But-
thing. So you expose them to. But they feel comfortable in their own space, in their own tongue, using their own voice.
They say it's
That's
easier.
But
true.
they
Yes.
also know that, listen, I have to learn this other language
learn it.
because if I am going to be interviewed for a job, if I'm
Right.
going overseas, if I'm doing
You
examinations,
have to
if
write
I
it.
have to write, so you have to have it up here before you can write it, you know. And a lot of the times the problems they have, the language they speak is not the one they can write. So they might be thinking in one language, but they are attempting to write in a different language. And that is a problem. That is one part of the problem. So,
I'm also thinking, Dr. Clark, that when I mentioned earlier about the think pair,
yes.
if we could have them work with a partner, an accountability partner, who, let us say, one is stronger in the Creole, the patois, they have their partner who will translate. All right.
That's a good one.
Right.
And they
so
learn
they have
a lot
somebody
from
to,
each
to
other.
peer,
Yes.
to
So
you
it's
know?
a peer share,
Right.
peer, yes.
So we could have that day.
Great.
And then we would get that person who, normally clams up when it's time for the standard. They get a little strength from a partner
Yes.
who will be able to translate.
And you can also do
we could bring
activities.
back
Mhm.
and tell them we are working for this 28 marks.
We're
enough.
working for that.
Yes.
We're
simple
working
exam.
for it, and so it is required time and place that and it will also be a part of their exam checklist
Yes.
that they have there, that you must write in standard English in order to
Because-
pass this exam.
And to write in standard English doesn't necessarily mean you speak with an accent. Because the
Exactly.
minute
We
I
don't want
say,
any twanging. We
remember-
want it to be
I
authentic.
say, you want to do that again in
Standard Jamaican English is
They
how
go
you
off
talk.
with the
Yeah.
accent.
It's just if you're
Yes,
using
yes.
the formal register. But
And
yes.
our
No
teachers
accent,
too.
no Yankee talk, please.
That's the minute you say
Yes.
you want to do that again in standard English for me, sweetheart, because I'm not going to have you think that how you addressed me a while ago in the Creole, something is really wrong with that. No, just do it again in English. I get an accent. I
So
get an accent.
you have to
So
disabuse
we
them
have
of that
Yes,
notion.
all those things. And teachers, please, I notice more and more of us are in the English classroom using up the Creole, so we are actually teaching in it.
And-
they cannot learn the
The
standard
modeling,
And not
the
only
modeling.
that, we are getting some other parts of other language. Ghana ain't, and that
Yes.
is coming out in their writing as
Yes,
well.
yes. Oh, yes.
And the chief examiner mentioned that
Yes.
as well.
And I'm noticing too that many of them are leaving off the be in because they're just saying cause.
Cause,
so and so.
yes, and
And
that
so
came out as
we
well.
could point out some of their errors,
Errors, yes.
right? One thing that I've noticed that worked was that we took a few of the scripts and we highlighted the errors and we allowed them to pick up some of them. How would we correct? So we give them like a time, let's correct this in 10 minutes. And they were able to critique and say, well, Miss, who write that paper? Yeah, of course, we would have taken out the names already. But I said, Miss, somebody really write this? And I said, yes, one of your
Came
classmates.
from the class.
Right.
Came
And
from
I
the
said,
class.
boy, Miss. Right? And so we find that, as I said, sensitize them to the rubric. Let them create
to
their
the
own
value
exam
of
tips.
the importance of speaking.
Create
like
their
that.
exam
Yes,
checklist.
it is
So we have
important.
come up with quite a few
Yes.
strategies, colleagues.
Because they need to know,
Yes.
that.
And we are not saying you're not doing. We know you're doing.
Yes.
But we are hoping that this session allowed you to see from other educators just like you, some of the things that they do that work, some of the strategies that are working, especially in classrooms that, might not have the so-called traditional students. These are many times reluctant learners, reluctant readers, but we are doing things that work, that get our students going, that get them engaged, that get them energized.
Hence the marginal improvements in the
Yes,
report.
and we're happy with the improvements.
Of
We want to
course.
see a lot more. So we want to thank our team for their insights. I think we have done really well, and we hope that 2026 will be a great year for our students, and the results
Yes.
Will be better.
will be phenomenal. That's what we're hoping for.
Exactly.
And I know with professionals like you both, with the passion and the drive and the determination and the love, we can do that and more. Here are some tips for the extended writing, and we're spending a little time on this primarily because our candidates, our students, continue to underperform in this area. So one of the first things that we want them to do is to add supporting details. Many times they do not use the box provided for the jottings. They do not use the bullet points that are provided as the prompts. So we need to find strategies, and we saw some of these earlier today, that we could use to get the students to build on what is there already. So they are to give examples to each bullet point in order to develop a good plan and also to have adequate paragraphs. And we need to remind them that they get marks for planning. So when after they have done their work and they've edited and they've read over, there is a part on the document that they sign to say that they have done so, and they get marks for that. Here are a few tips for preparing for the exams. We want our students, and we have to drill it into them, that they have to manage their time. So when a question is asked, there's no need for them to repeat or write over the question or the stem. Just answer what is asked. Most times it's one word that is asked for, or a sentence in some instances. You do not have to write over, you waste time. Another thing you need to do, answer all parts of the question and look at the value of the question. If it is asking you for 3 things and there are 3 marks assigned and you only put 1, you're only going to be getting 1 mark if you're correct. So you have to teach them to deal with all parts of the question. And again, of course, we mentioned earlier, but for emphasis, spend some time on the extended writing. Use the prompts to expand the points that are given. And as we mentioned earlier, the extended writing really carries the bulk of the marks. So if they do well there, they would do pretty well on the paper. As with any exam, read over your work. For stages 2 and 3, you need to sign that you have done so, and you will get the mark. Use a black ink. We are still hearing from the chief examiner that candidates are using pencil, they're using markers, they're using all other kinds of colored ink to write the exam. We are asking you, use a black ink pen, and also take a dictionary to the exam, because regardless of the stage you're going to be attempting, there is at least one task that will require the use of the dictionary. And here are some resources that are available for teachers in terms of tutorial materials. We have the handbook that covers stages 1 to 3. We have 14 sets of past papers. We have the guidance document. We also have textbooks. There's one, English for Caribbean Schools, City and Guilds, by Sharon Stark, and that is also available at Media Services at the Media Services Unit at the Ministry of Education. There's an e-text also available at Book Fusion, English Practice for City and Guilds and other exams. We have the Smart Screen, that is the online platform created by London that has a wealth of tutorial materials for teachers and students. Then we have the Frequently Asked Questions, that is authored by Sylvia Bryan and modified each year to reflect the theme. And finally, on YouTube, you can find all the past papers and presentations. So we have provided for you quite a few resources that will help you to prepare your students as they engage in City and Guilds English skills. We want to thank you for our session, and we hope that you have found these sessions meaningful and engaging and rewarding. Thank you all.
My name is Alisa Brown. My title is a teacher assistant at Crystal House, Jamaica. The certifications I hold is City and Guilds Maths and City and Guilds English. My teacher, Miss Walker, she pushed me into that part of doing that subject at that time, and I applied for HEART for the program. I got a call, and when I went to my Crystal House, they accepted me, employed me, trained me how to train in the work as a teacher, and then after that, 6 months or between 7, they employed me as one of their employees over Crystal House. I feel excited. I am very encouraged by it. I would not be in this position if I didn't do my City and Guilds Maths and English. So go for it.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sylvia Bryan. I'm a former lead quality external assurer for City and Guilds. And today we'll be looking at the speaking and listening qualification. We'll start with a few slides and then we'll have a panel discussion. We look first at the objectives and expectations, and at the end of this session we expect that assessors and external quality assurers will be able to identify the activities in the 3 stages of the speaking and listening qualification. They'll be able to identify the elements in the quality assurance process, to apply strategies to increase student participation and success in both the preparation and examination stages of the speaking and listening qualification. They should also be able to list at least 5 benefits of oral competence. Let us look at the activities in the 3 stages of the speaking and listening qualification. Each stage has a listening task. Each stage engages in a discussion. At the end of the discussion, each stage does a reflection. Stage 3, which is the stage commensurate to the CSEC exam, has in addition a presentation and a peer evaluation. For the peer evaluation, we have one presenter, then the peer evaluates that presenter, and then they change places. The elements in the quality assurance process. First, we look at the internal, and these people are the exams coordinator, the internal quality assurer, and the assessor. For the external, there's the external quality assurer and Caribbean quality. Caribbean quality is that group of persons to whom the external quality assurer submits the external verification report. They will look at that report and determine what is the status of the center based on the observations of the external quality assessor. They are based out of this island. We have documentation or resources, and this is very important. The qualification handbook, which is certificates in English, each assessor should have one because it contains the guidance and content for all of the stages. Then there is the textbook qualification handbook, certificate in English for Caribbean schools, City and Guilds 3850 by Sharon Stark. You need to have this textbook because it is very helpful. It looks at all the different criteria and it makes suggestions about activities which you can engage students in. There is the frequently asked questions document. It covers everything. It covers approaches, it covers dates for exams, and it gives hints as to how teachers can approach the delivery of the qualification. The Qualification Status Guidelines International 0.12, February 2020, that is that particular version. It is a very, very important document. As the name implies, based on how the center fulfills certain criteria, that book gives you an idea of your qualification status, whether you will remain as a center delivering City and Guilds exams or you will lose your status. It gives guidance as to what the internal quality assurer should do, what the assessor needs to do, etc. It is very crucial. You must own a copy. You must become acquainted with the contents of it in order to ensure that your center remains in good standing. There's the smart board, which is very helpful because it has examples of activities in which you can engage students in order to fulfill the qualifications criteria. There is a website which has material which can support your delivery, and you should be able to find instructions there. I believe also that you will find the frequently asked questions document, and there are usually past examination papers as well. The wall garden, you have to have special access to that, special permission, but that is something which you can find out from the office, City and Guilds local office. The external verification report, this is the report which is completed by your external verifier. You should become acquainted with the different segments of that report so that you ensure that you are ready and able to be given a good comment when the external verifier comes to see your school. So once you get your visit planner, you need to make sure that you look at a copy of the external verification report so that you can do what is necessary to get a good report. Definition of oral competence. The speaking and listening exam, the speaking and listening activities, they are designed to improve the oral competence of the student. As we go into our panel discussion, you will find that we are focusing on activities which will ensure that students develop oral competence, and in our final discussion, we'll be looking at some of the advantages of being orally competent. We want you to emphasize to your students that it's not a matter of passing the City and Guilds exam. It's a matter of developing the skill of oral competence, both for social and professional economic reasons. This is very important that they understand the overall objective of the speaking and listening qualification. It is the ability to use the following elements to achieve effective oral communication: correct grammar and vocabulary pronunciation, intonation, fluency, and flexibility. If one speaks in a monotone, one will not be effective. And we have quite a few examples of that in the public space. And so we want to help our children to understand that intonation is important, fluency is important, because you want to make sure that your listener is able to follow your trend of thought. Flexibility, very important, because you need to be able to communicate with your audience regardless of the age and the stage. You need to be able to connect with your audience, and that's why it is important to have flexibility. Next, you have the adaptation of both verbal and non-verbal elements, body language, to suit the context or the situation. Students must be aware of the effect of body language in communicating their mood, their attitude, their thoughts, because if the body language contradicts what they are saying, then they will be sending mixed signals and they will fail to communicate what they set out to do. And so when we think of communicative competence, we have to focus on both verbal and non-verbal communication. And you will notice that one of the standards, one of the criterion which is required is the use of body language. And there's actually a question in the reflection which asks, how did you communicate non-verbally with gestures, etc. So it is very important for the exam and for real life. As we are about to go into the panel discussion, I want you to listen carefully and note that divergent questions will be used to gain additional information, including clarification in exploring objectives 3 and 4. That is, talking about oracy and about strategies which can be used to help students to be ready for the examination and to succeed at the examination. We are about now to start our panel discussion.
The City and Guilds qualifications are recognized worldwide. It opens doors locally and regionally for anyone who has a certificate. Employers know the value of the City and Guilds certification, whether it's in any of the subject areas, customer service, math, English, because it provides that real world skill that are transferable across industries. We focus on practical skills that employers look for, especially in technical and vocational areas, but it's not limited to that. We offer a certification for everyone, whether you're in high school, a recent graduate of high school, or even in the workforce. Our strong local partnerships ensure that the certifications match the needs of the employers today. In addition to the physical certificate, you'll receive a digital badge which you can showcase or display on your social media, your website, or your email signature. It's a verified way to impress your employers and showcase your achievements. To start your City and Guilds journey, you can first visit our website, cityandguilds.com. You can call us or visit the office in Kingston. Here at City and Guilds, you're not just getting a certification, you're opening the door to a world of opportunities.
Reimagined.
Welcome back. At this time, I have the pleasure of asking my panelists to introduce themselves.
Hello everyone, I am Kadian Johnson. I am a classroom teacher and I am also an external quality assurer for City and Guilds.
Hello everyone, I'm Donna Brown. I'm a classroom teacher at the Dunoon Park Technical High School.
I want to direct the first question to Ms. Brown because we have a concern with the fact that many students do not turn up for their speaking and listening exams. But you have managed at Dunoon to have a very high participation of your students in this exam. And so I want you to share with our audience what are the strategies which you have employed in order to have your students so highly engaged.
Okay, well, at our school, we have a system. We have a system of firstly sharing information about the exam. So when it is time for the speaking and listening exam, everyone is on board. So we have the grade supervisor who sends out messages to the parents. At the PTA, parent-teachers meeting, we share the information. The principal is on board. He will constantly send reminders out to the students. We also, in the class, as a part of our class, we also encourage students to turn up, make sure they are on the register, make sure we have a list of names, constantly remind them. And that is how we basically get them to be present for the exam.
Is there any additional strategy, Ms. Johnson, which you think would assist?
Sometimes you realize that even though the students are aware as to the dates of the exam, you have to get the parents involved as well. She did mention about parents, but you have to ensure that the task is difficult for educators, but you have to call the parents. You have to constantly remind them that your child has an exam on this day. There are instances sometimes when you call and the parents are not aware that there is an exam going on for their child. It shouldn't be so. But as educators, we have to ensure that we get all stakeholders on board to ensure that the students attend all exams.
We have heard mention of attendance, but usually if one feels confident about performance in an exam, then one is likely to attend the exam. And so I want to hear now about some of the strategies which would ensure that students are properly prepared and so feel confident about taking the exam. I'll start with Ms. Brown again.
Okay, so firstly, we stress the importance of the exam. We stress the importance of how important City and Guilds is to their lives, basically. Then in our class, as a part of our classroom practice now, we ensure that students are given all the information they need. We ensure that they all understand the importance of what we are doing, the importance of City and Guilds, and then we give them the practice that they need and the encouragement that they need to move on.
Could you say something for me about your grouping strategy, for example? Because the discussion is one of the things which seem to frighten students. So what is your discussion strategy, or what are some of your strategies?
Okay, so we practice in class. We practice in class. Mainly we start with groups of students. After we have given them the theme, we'll give them guidelines as to how to function in the group. But for the grouping now, we usually allow them to, in the beginning, like for practice in class, we allow them to form groups, friendship groups. We allow them to form friendship groups, because when we do that, we realize that they are more comfortable in their discussion. So we allow that. But sometimes you have some students who may not have a group naturally, who may not fall into that friendship group, and we'll add them to a group, or we'll form new groups. And so we find that students begin to gel with each other, they begin to understand how to communicate with each other. So that is how we work our grouping. When it's exam time, when it's time for exam, what we do is we still keep some of the friendship groups, but we also have mixed. We mix. If when we look at the group we have issues, we have some issues, we tend to mix them, or we go according to how we assess the students. We assess them. We assess the groups, and the ones that are if we feel that the group will function best as friends, we allow that. If not, we put them in groups.
Ms. Johnson, do you see any disadvantage to keeping these friendship groups?
All right, so before I respond to the question, it is important to note that even though in class you may pair them with if you're a friendship groups, you may pair them with their friends. While they're doing the exam for City and Guilds, you cannot do that. It is important to know that you have to just select students and group them. An advantage of having your friendship groups, though, is, for them to be comfortable with the discussion. Isn't that so? So you want them to be comfortable with the discussion at first, and to have the criteria, all the criteria intact, to say, all right, then, this is what I'm expecting of you. So as a group, that is good. But it is also important to note that you must mix them. You must strike a balance. So mix them so that when it is time for their exams, they know exactly okay, if I'm not paired with John today and I'm with Stacy, then I'll be able to function. So when you do that in class, it will be better for them when they're doing the exam for City and Guilds.
Are these friendship groups gender-based?
No, they're not usually
gender-based. It's important to mix.
No, our students, they mix. No, they mix well. We have both the boys and the girls.
And in the real world, you have to communicate with people who are not necessarily your friends. I would also think that sometimes the mix has to look at personality types. You need to have a devil's advocate in some of the groups so that you will provoke responses from the others. So you need to bear that in mind. Personality types need to be, balanced and so on. You might get a whole set of quiet children and they allow one person to dominate. So there has to be a balance between teacher-selected group and student-selected group.
May I add a point before you go on?
Yes.
Sometimes too, we realize that at our school, what we do is that we select a group leader. So when we group the students, we will say, okay, then Marvin, you can be the group leader. You're going to introduce the group. So we practice it in such a way so that when it is time for the discussion, it is fluent and everything goes according to plan. So you will introduce the group. You will also speak about the topic, and then you will introduce yourselves. And then we know that as educators and as assessors, we're not supposed to interrupt the discussion while it is going on. So we practice it in such a way whereby if I am not speaking, then the group leader will ask a question to say, Kadian, do you have anything to add to the discussion? Because remember that everybody has to speak, and if you don't speak, then you won't get a mark at all. So you can select a group leader and allow the discussion to be fluent.
Yes. That's a very good strategy if you rotate group leaders so that everybody gets a chance.
Yes, it will be rotated.
Yes, good. Ms. Brown, it seems you wanted to add to this.
I was saying, yes, we do group leader. We do allow them to choose somebody to be the group leader as well. And one of the things that the group leader does is sometimes there's a lull in the conversation, in that discussion. And sometimes even a member may need a little prompt. The group leader sometimes takes on that role to guide the discussion to make sure that it flows.
I wondered if students get a chance to practice from grade 7. I know that you have the focus in grades 10 and 11, but do students get a chance to practice from grade 7 to 9? That is, do you incorporate the speaking and listening strand from the National Standard Curriculum in the delivery of the language lessons?
We do the speaking and listening strand, not necessarily in the same format as the City and Guilds, but we allow them to speak. We give them opportunities to speak. We give them discussions. We do have discussions as well, but not necessarily in the strictest sense, using the same rubric as the City and Guilds, but we do allow them to practice speaking and listening. We do.
How do you get them to recognize that the focus is on oral competence?
Well, part of it is through our instruction, really. Through just motivating them, giving them the advantages of being able to speak well. So for City and Guilds, they know that for every exam, every English exam actually, it is very important for you to be able to speak. All the exams come with that component. So what we do is we encourage them and we give them practice to allow them to understand that this is very important.
Oh, Ms. Johnson, how do you see the use of the assessment criteria in helping them to become aware of the need for oral competence?
All right, so it is very, very important for them to know the assessment criteria, because what I do is that before actually doing the discussion, I print out the rubric for them to view it. We go through it, and then after viewing it, I tell them that these are the expectations. When we're doing the discussion now, we model the discussion. So I will invite 3 teachers in. So as teachers, we do the modeling first. After we model the discussion, then we go back to the assessment criteria and we say, okay, did you see where we use any words to interrupt the discussion, to get them to understand what we mean by using phrases to interrupt and so on. After we have done that and we believe that, okay, then they understand what it means to have a discussion, then we put a group together for them to do a discussion. on their own, and then we ensure that we remind them that, all right, you have to use phrases to interrupt, you have to ask questions, and so on.
Ms. Brown, how does the use of student assessors help in the process?
Okay, first the students seem to understand each other more than even when you the teacher is, your teacher is helping them. But what it does is it helps them to understand. It helps them with understanding better. It also gives them practice so that when they are ready to do it, they remember. It helps them to remember what it is that is needed. That's the main thing it really does. It also helps them to understand how the person who is assessing them, how that person thinks. It really helps them with that. So when they're finished, I find that when they're finished judging each other's conversations and group discussions, I find that when they are ready, they are more conscious of the criteria, and they're more conscious of what they need to be doing. So it really does help them.
So their role as assessor helps to reinforce for them the importance of following the criteria.
Following the criteria, yes it does.
Thank you. Now, there are some particular assessment criteria which tend to focus on oracy, where in the reflection, where they ask about what questions did you ask, what points did you make. How do the students handle the reflection part of the exam? Is it a true reflection of what they did, or do you find that there's a disparity between their performance and what they record as their reflection?
Sometimes they want to show off a bit when they're writing in the reflections. They feel they're not going to check it. But some of them are honest enough to say what it is that they have looked at, and because we practiced it before, because we spoke about it before in class, when they were doing their practice, some of them really understand and they are honest enough. Some will just add things that they think will make them look good.
But sometimes it's sometimes though it's not a true reflection of what was done in the discussion.
Yes,
that is why as educators we have to ensure that we make our notes. We will know which questions were asked. We will know exactly who interrupted who and which question did they respond to. So a lot of times it's not a true reflection, because sometimes when you ask them, they don't even remember the question that they asked. So sometimes, so even though it is important for them to make a note of it, as educators we have to ensure that we can be able to look at it and know that if it is a true reflection of what took place in the discussion.
We tend to have students using a limited range of expressions for interrupting or changing the focus of a conversation and so on. How do you help your students to develop a reasonable arsenal of such phrases?
The things that we do is we make a list of phrases that you could use. Phrases that you could use for interruption. So once students begin to practice these phrases, we give them a list and they begin to practice these phrases. When they're ready to have the discussions, it flows better. It flows better. So they tend to use it more then. But if they are not familiar with enough, a variety of phrases, they'll just stick to one. I'd like to interrupt. And that the main one that they use is I'd like to interrupt, please. Or I'd like to interject.
Or may I add something?
Or may I add something? So as I was saying, once they have a list of phrases that they already know and are familiar with, and we practice how to use them, we find that when it's time for them to actually do the exam, they're able to use it with confidence and accurately.
Would you like to add something to that, Miss?
We were discussing, remember they can also, for each day we can select the phrase that we want them to use. So for today's class we may choose 2 phrases and then we'll give them some practice. For next week's class we'll choose another 2. So when we do that, we will give them more options so that when they're having their discussion, they'll be able to use these phrases effectively.
I note that in most schools there is a time called common planning. Do you have that in your school? Do you have a common planning period?
Yes, we do. Thursdays. Yes. Whenever
Okay.
we have our meetings, some meetings are slated for planning.
Okay. Have you ever tried to use the common planning period to get some of your colleagues on board to assist you with the developing the students' oral skills? For example, I think that social studies is an area where you could work with your peer. You know, they have historical characters, which if they decide that they are going to do a simulation, if they decide that they are going to do a debate, for example, have you tried, you know, speaking with your colleagues on this, with the sense of language across the curriculum, for them to help you? Because you tend to find in schools when students do not have good writing or speaking skills, they will say, what is happening in the English department? But have you ever tried going to them, you know, to ask them to incorporate some of the kinds of activities that would help your students, activities which the subjects lend themselves to? Have you ever thought of that?
No, we have not done that in our planning sessions. But maybe when we have special celebrations, we work together. Like we'll have, just say we have national heroes, we have that kind of celebration. Then we collaborate. We work with the humanities department, where we may supply students. We may ask us who are, you know, who are good students. We may want somebody to do a presentation. That's how we do it, but not in our regular classroom.
Do you think it is a possibility to ask them to integrate some of these activities in their class?
Yes, we could. Yes.
I think it would
be a good idea.
I think it would be worthwhile. As I said, it's language across the curriculum, you know. What about having students participate in school functions that require introducing a speaker, giving a vote of thanks, and so on, as a strategy to help them develop their oracy and their confidence?
Yes, we do that. We do that, not necessarily with the City and Guilds competence in mind, but we're just helping them with oracy in general. We have a literary arts club, for instance, and that's through that we train our students to do presentations and all of that. And at our school, over 90% of the students do City and Guilds anyway, so they all benefit from it.
Miss Johnson, have you ever had an English day in your school?
I can't recall us having an English day, but we know that the language department, we help other departments to help the students at our school. So for example, you know, you have some who may be slower than the rest. We have the APS coaches who go out into the social studies classes and other classes to assist the teachers to get the students on board and to help them overall with language and speaking. We also select students to do interviews and to give vote of thanks, and we're preparing them for life basically. So it's not just about City and Guilds, it's preparing them for the future. When they go out for interviews, they know what exactly to say and how to conduct themselves. So that's basically what we do at our institution.
You said how to conduct themselves. This takes me into the area of nonverbal communication. You will notice that in the reflections for stage 3 and stage 2, they ask about nonverbal communication. How much emphasis do you place on this? And do you explain to students why this is important?
Okay, maybe not enough emphasis for us, for my school. I don't think we place enough emphasis on it. But it is very important that students understand the importance of nonverbal communication as well as verbal communication. So the importance of nonverbal communication is stressed stressed as students do their presentation and their discussion, because we know that nonverbal communication is very important in projecting a person's attitude, and we know that whatever it is that they're doing, it is a part of helping them to bring their message across. So whatever they're doing, if what they're saying is not matching, not syncing with what they are doing with their gestures and their facial expressions or their overall body language, we know that it can affect the communication. So we do emphasize nonverbal communication, the importance of nonverbal communication.
We'll now take a break, and on our return, we will continue our discussion on strategies to prepare students adequately for the examination and for life.
City and Guilds is a viable option for several students in Jamaica, and the accreditation is very valuable as students go towards their career path or prepare themselves to enter the tertiary institution of choice. Several organizations see the value of their employees being certified in City and Guilds. That being said, we can talk about Jamaica Constabulary Force and the toll booth operators. They would have seen the value of it and invested in developing their employees professionally by sponsoring them to obtain certification in City and Guilds. CSAC is our regional exam. However, City and Guilds is a viable option for students who are not going to enter into career paths that are math extensive. And that being said, City and Guilds math is an excellent option for students who have this new career path. The lawyer, the doctor are not the only professions out there. City and Guilds math is a viable option that should be explored by you if your career path does not require extensive math studies. Will take you places.
Music license.
Welcome back. We want to look a little more at oral communication. There are a number of assessment criteria which speak specifically to oral communication. To listen and respond appropriately to other points of view is one of those criterion. I would like our panelists to say why this is particularly important in a discussion and in social relationships, because we want students to see the value of this activity for their personal development as well as for the examination.
We have to first understand, you see, when we do the listening component of the exam, we realize that our students really don't listen well. Some persons just want to respond, but it is so important that before you respond, you have to listen to each other in the discussion, because that is how you're going to add to the discussion. That is how the discussion is going to flow. So we have to teach our students that it is so very important for you to listen to your classmates, listen to your group members, because in listening, that's how you'll be able to add to the discussion and to strengthen the discussion.
Yes, listening is very important, and we want them to know that for clarity, when you're listening, that is how you, listening is a way of you getting information. Very important. If you are not able to listen keenly, messages will be lost. So something will be said and you will not be able to understand it. There will be no clarity. So listening is a way of you understanding what is being said. And this is a skill that you'll need throughout life, being able to listen. It clears up many concepts. It gets rid of misunderstandings. It really enhances your learning overall. So listening is definitely a key skill that students must be able to use.
Students sometimes play Chinese telephone in order to show how what comes out at the end is very different from what is at the beginning. And sometimes teachers give students instructions and they do not hear because they are not active listeners. And so I would ask that we make a special emphasis to get the children to themselves tell us why it is important for them to develop good listening skills in terms of how they have to function within the school environment first. Then you could take them to some street scenarios and to work scenarios to get them to understand how important it is to be an active listener instead of merely listening so you can retort, answer back quickly to show your point of view. And so this is something that they need to really pay attention to as they actually have the listening comprehension people. And so you want to let them understand that, because it seems that quite a high percentage of learning that takes place in school comes from listening to teachers, listening to peers, listening to recorded information. And so they need to understand how important it is to develop that skill. I want to ask you to respond to this assessment criteria, respond to criticism and criticize constructively. How do you get your students to develop the skill, and how would you explain to them the importance of the skill? So what is the activity, what activities could help them develop it, and how do you get them to understand the importance of it socially, in the workplace, etc.?
One activity that you can do is that you can have mini discussions, or not mini discussions, mini presentations. When they do these presentations, then you will ask a student to critique the peer. Because when they do this now, they will have a feel of how to conduct themselves during the presentation aspect of the City and Guilds exam. So when they go up and they present, I model what I'm expecting of them. So I will tell them, okay, you're going to critique the presentation. You're going to start with the positives first. So tell what you liked about the presentation, and then after that, then you can speak about anything else that you think the peer could have done differently. And then in critiquing each other, over time you realize that it becomes easy for them. So they will just be able to say what they think about the presentation, and then the presenter, it is not just about somebody critiquing your presentation. As the presenter, you should be able to respond to that criticism as well. What is it? Is it that even though you're not pleased about what was said, how is it that you're going to respond to your peer? So the peer may tell you that, I don't think that you had enough information. You could say, thank you very much for your criticism. I could have, do more. I could have done more research in order to bring my points across. So you have to know how to criticize, and you have to know, students need to know how to respond to the criticism.
Ms. Brown?
Okay, just to add to what you were saying, just add something extra. When you allow, you have to give the students practice to criticize each other. But one of the most important things is that you don't leave it as a free-for-all criticism. Because you have to have a list of criteria a list of things that you will critique, list of things that you can say, what you should be looking for. So that means when you do that, then you have less personal, because sometimes students can get very personal with the critique, and that can lead to problems. So when they have a list of things to talk about, so if I say to students, for instance, was the pitch too high? You could have that. So you have a checklist. I give them a checklist.
Okay, that's a good idea.
A checklist of the things that you should talk about. So students are less inclined to take the criticism, to be offended and take it personal. Always give that to them. And once you have done that, they get to understand better, and they tend to appreciate it more.
And maybe if you let them know that the criticism is designed to make better, enhance. So what could my peer have done to make the presentation better. And so it is going to be the concept of positive criticism. And so they need to understand that concept and accept that I could improve if I did this. And I am telling you this so you can improve in that area. But you always start by saying you were very good with X, Y, Z, but you would be even better if you did A, B, C. So you let them know that the criticism involves both positive and what might be perceived as negative. We mentioned the fact that all this is designed to improve oral competence, and we enumerated a number of traits which denote oral competence. We talked about oral communication, we talked about nonverbal communication as well. We may want to look now at some of the benefits to the students of oral competence in terms of personal development, in terms of achievement scholastically, in terms of potential for employment and so on. So we want to be able to get them to understand how oral competence will benefit them. I'll start with Ms. Johnson this time.
All right, so we know that when you are able to communicate effectively, then it puts you give you a little edge over other persons when you're able to communicate effectively. Also, we realize that students who are able to communicate, they do better at their exams as well. And when we do the City and Guilds discussions, the ones who are able to lead and communicate and to direct the discussion, they are the ones we realize will score. They will come out on top for the discussion and the presentations for City and Guilds exams.
Another thing with being orally competent, one of the things that we should never overlook, and we always stress it, is the level of confidence that it gives the students. When they are able to speak well and they do a good presentation, you can see the difference in that student. These are the students who become the leaders. The ones who are able to speak well, they are very confident, and the confidence plays a great role in how they perform overall. They are quicker to speak, they are quicker to present issues. It does something for them. It really builds their character, it builds them as a person. Oral competence is very important. Makes them confident.
How does it affect their social interaction? The absence of it or the presence of it, oral competence or lack of oral competence. How does that affect the social interaction?
It does affect it. It does affect it because the persons who are orally competent, they are the first ones to speak up in issues, mainly. They are the ones who are able to carry conversations and carry, even when there are disputes or the students are disgruntled about something, they are the ones who are able to present the information and get results. The ones who are able to speak well. They are usually the leaders and they're the ones who get the results.
And sometimes the ones who are able to speak well, they are the ones who, for us as educators, they are the ones who can maybe get us to even change a grade or two, because they might come and they might say, but miss, I don't think I deserve this grade, because, this could have been, based on the question that you have, I thought that I answered this question, so instead of not getting any mark, means maybe they could have give me half mark. So the ones who are able to communicate well also will have their way with us as educators. They get things done.
And just to add this, another thing with oral competencies, when we enter competitions as a school, like last school year we entered the Part the Poem competition from the University of the West Indies. Some of them were able to impress their judges and they were able to win prizes because of how well they spoke.
You know, so it does something to their academic development. I mean, some competitions even offer scholarships, they offer grants, they offer money, and some of our students have been doing very well with that because of how well they speak.
Do you find this affecting the level of conflict? The ability to speak well or not speak well? To articulate or not articulate? Does it affect the nature of the level of conflict within a class, within relationships?
Yes, the inability to properly articulate what you have to say. That definitely leads to conflict sometimes because people get mixed messages or get the wrong message from what someone is saying, and it causes conflicts, and somebody has to now come in and basically mediate to say, no, this was not what was meant. This was not what the person was saying. So it's not being able to communicate effectively orally, it can definitely lead to a lot of conflicts and problems.
And sometimes it gets physical as well,
Yes.
because they're not able to communicate effectively, and instead of, because they cannot do so, they think that it's best to be physical, and sometimes too they really don't know better too. There's no other way to communicate. It's just physical. So we have to teach them as well how to communicate effectively, so that they don't get into any altercations or anything physical at school.
Or sometimes they just go quiet. We have
Yes.
those students too who just become so quiet. Even when they have issues, even when they want to move forward, they can't because they're just they're not able to articulate and they're not confident enough to say what it is that they need to say. So they become lost because they are not speaking up at all.
Do you think sometimes they're frustrated?
Yeah, they become frustrated, but some persons is because they're not confident with the language, but using the language effectively, not confident enough to speak up. Yes, that's a part of it too.
How does the speaking and listening help to develop students' vocabulary? What are some of the ways, what are some of the components in speaking and listening which helps to develop children's or extend their vocabulary?
They are forced, when they have to speak, especially when they have to speak, they are forced to now find words to express themselves. So you'll find that, for instance, before they do a presentation, they'll write the presentation and they'll go and find words to express their thoughts or what they want to generally say, to express thoughts and ideas, because some of them didn't know some words before. So it really helps them with the vocabulary.
And how does City and Guilds itself help with the vocabulary development?
Oh, City and Guilds, first of all, they send a vocabulary list.
Yes, that word list.
Yes, they send a word list for each stage that the students have to study. Some of the words were unfamiliar words before. The students get a chance to study the words so that they have enough in their arsenal for when they are ready to actually present.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure that you have learned quite a bit from our two panelists, Ms. Brown and Ms. Johnson. I want to thank you for your fulsome answers in conveying so much information which our teachers should find very helpful. I trust that going forward, they will employ some of the strategies and be able to improve the number of students who sit the speaking and listening exam, who do well and go out into the world orally competent.
Hello, we'll be going into a question and answer session. So have your questions ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, I would like to answer them at this time. Please send them to the chat and they'll be conveyed to me. Thank you. Oh, there's a question about what about listening activities? With regard to the classroom activities, I don't know if the panelists are in the audience, if they would like to respond, but you can have students practice listening to recording material as they will during the exam. You can have students practice listening to specific programs, whether you want to can these programs and use them in the classroom, or if you want them to actually listen to presentations like those made on Boys Day or Jamaica Day or different school activities where they are actually listening to real life situations, real life presentations, and you ask them questions afterwards, or you give them questions beforehand so that they know when they meet you again, they would need to give you answers. So you can have games or you can have real life situations. Who can spot the main idea where you are going to have them doing transfers between the reading and writing and listening? Who can spot the irrelevant information in this piece of presentation, which you could have your children do in small groups or whole class, but you get them to target specific things. And the idea is to really help children to improve their listening. You tell them what they are listening for. And this is where your literacy person would help you, because children should not be listening and then be asked afterwards about what they've heard. They should be listening for specific things. So you tell them what it is they are going to listen for, and then afterwards you ask them to see if they listened and got the information that they needed to extract from the presentation. Or reading aloud. This might sound old-fashioned, but dictation has a place. It helps the children to listen to what you are saying, and it also should help them with your punctuation, because the modulation of your voice would suggest a comma, suggest a full stop, etc., exclamation, a question. So the dictation, not a whole long passage, but short passages, and you could speak with your teachers who teach modern languages, because some of the techniques which they would use, you would also use, because in a way, this is a kind of foreign language to some of our students. So this is where the integration and language across the curriculum come in. I hope that is something you can practice.
Also, teachers, please be reminded that the YouTube link will be sent into the group and will be emailed to you, because the session was recorded and streamed to YouTube.
Okay, it seems that we are at the end of our session, as that was the only question. So thank you for attending and listening, and I trust that you and your students would have benefit. Thank you.